you do it. Oh, this is great. Ooh, well, Ladine, I see it. Thank you for sharing, and let us know how those hormone levels are.
I'm telling you, yo.
So when they come back and your hormone levels are normal, you got a plan. You got a plan B.
Oh God, no. And that's what no, because and that's what's happening, right? So I got all of the rest of my blood work back today. So I asked the nurse, I'm like, but what happened to like my hormone panel and stuff? She said, yeah, no, Dr. Powell's recommending you out for that. Gee, and I'm over here saying her name on the thing. I'm sorry. She was like, yeah, no, so she's recommending you out for that because she thinks that a GYN would be able to give a more a more in-depth looks at what's happening with you.
That's code for ain't nothing wrong with you. Just go sit on somebody's couch a few weeks, and I'll see you back.
Girl, I cannot. Because you had to see me in there. I'm like, what do I need? Do I need to go to an endocrinologist? Do I need to go to a gynecologist? What do I need? Like, I really need them to check out these hormones. I'm telling you, it was mad funny. Whew. Anyway, on to the next. What's happening with y'all?
I think you probably need a 2-day getaway.
Oh my God, it's crazy, insane.
Yeah, and I'm sure you would feel much better after those 2 days.
Yeah, I probably would.
JR, can you make that happen for her?
Sure.
Did you say sure?
Yeah.
That's one of them answers that don't mean a whole lot.
I mean, I don't get what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah, he's not, he doesn't really react. But when he says sure, he means that. He probably will make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so in a couple of weeks, y'all should be able to report back on her 2-day off. I'm just saying.
We'll see how this goes. I just had like a relapse here on One Eye Shut. That was mad funny.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Al, how you doing today?
My word. Hey, what's up, everybody? And thank you for that funny moment in time. I appreciate that right there. My word for the day is refresh. That's my word. And so I refresh. It's this show refreshes me. And I like the word break it up. It's not just re-energize, but it's like, I mean, to be refreshed is because a shower refreshes me. So like, it's really this idea that I'm fresh again and I'm So, I mean, but like, so it's not just be refreshed as in you re-energized and shit like that. That's not what I mean by refreshed. I'm refreshed like as in the slate is wiped clean. Like I come to this show and the stress and shit that I be dealing with coming in or the energy that we be struggling with by the end of the motherfucking time we together, that ain't part of my story no more. Like it's like a shower. You go into the shower dirty, you come out clean. That's what this show does for me. It really just makes me refreshed to where I feel different. And so it's not about like, all right, the cloud that was on me after the show, it's with me again. Nah, that cloud is gone. The dirt is gone. And I'll get dirty again the next day, but I take another shower and I'm clean again. And that's what this show does for me. So that's my word. Refresh. I'm fresh again.
We'll take it all day long.
Nice.
Fresh.
Yeah, I love that.
JR, how you doing today?
I'm good. I don't know, I guess my word for the day would be torn. Everybody knows I'm just going through the last cycles of getting a new job and waiting on my start date, and gotten good news around that they're kind of revamping the position. So that I'll be responsible for more, and I'll be making more. But then I get a call from another company here. It's a growing company, really exciting place. Seems like it would be an exciting place as an opportunity to interview there. And I had a phone interview there. Made it to the next round of interviews. So I have a follow-up interview Monday, making more position. Was set to make more money. I'll be making the most money I've ever made in my life. So really another good opportunity, but I've already accepted another position. So I'm torn. Right. And I mean, there's pros and cons to both. I'm sure I would love either position. And the newer position is about 15 minutes further of a commute. So there's pros and cons to each, but I'm genuinely torn. So I really need to just take time to just to think it out and probably write some things down and just come to a conclusion, because I'm genuinely torn about it.
And are you torn simply because you accepted the offer?
No. That's part of it. Part of it is because I've accepted the offer, and the other part is because I think I would like that position more in the long run, like actually getting up and going to work every day. And it's a shorter commute. The other position, I would still like it. It would, put me back in a position where I'll be doing a lot of things I've done in my past. So I'll feel, comfortable doing it. But I would kind of feel like I'm taking a step backwards. But the money's better. There's pros and cons across the board. So, but taking, already accepting the offer is a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Ain't it nice to be wanted?
It is. But and again, that's part of like my personality. I don't like, and I absolutely agree with what you're saying. But it makes me uncomfortable because of my personality. I don't like attention. And so I like things to kind of go smoothly, and I don't like the spotlight on me and like have to make these decisions that are difficult and that's going to hurt somebody or put somebody else in a bad spot. So, that's kind of my personality, is I don't like the attention, because somebody in this is going to, get the short end of it. It ain't going to be me, but one of them going to get the short end of something.
So we went from this selfless, caring.
No, right.
I'm glad you picked that up.
Right, because at the end of the day, right, man. At the end of the day, I got to make a decision, and somebody's gonna, not gonna like it. And so I guess it's kind of like a shot to myself too. Like, dude, at the end of this, you got to make a decision, and you're going to make the best one that's, the best one for you and your family anyway. So stop bitching about it. So, yeah.
Are there, I guess it's always that as a possibility. But I was going to say, you could make it a little easier on yourself and withdraw from the process.
I could. Yeah.
What'd you say?
I could.
Yeah, nobody's doing that. Not right now, Gina. We don't got it like that. We're not doing that.
That's not happening.
Right. I was just trying to be helpful.
Well, yeah, and like part of it, like really is, I guess, kind of. I don't even know if I look at it as petty, but I guess it's really just look like the position I just accepted. Like, this interview process has been like crazy. I have 4 interviews. I have 4 rounds of interviews with these people, and And, like, they waited till, like, on the third one, I was like, I thought we were trying to make a decision and fill the spot 2 weeks ago. And they ended up saying that, yeah, we ended up interviewing another person, so there's another candidate. So they never told me that. And so I'm like, well, shit, now that I ain't your only candidate. Fuck y'all. Nah, you ain't my only option. So.
I think you're getting too froggy with this one today.
I'm just saying, like, that's the.
Real froggy.
I'm not getting froggy. I'm just saying, like, that's the.
It's okay. It's okay.
That, and even if I am, like, that's just the mindset it put me in. Not that I'm like being like I'm stuck in this petty spot, but I did have a petty moment where that's what I thought. Like, okay, I got options too. So
I got options.
But I guess that kind of boils down to, like you said, Gina, it does feel good to be wanted and have options. So, you do kind of, you do have those froggy moments where you're like, yeah, okay, it's like that. But, either way. And, to already have a position locked up, and I don't want to, push that aside for a maybe.
So. Right. Yeah, you're going to have 2 great options to choose from.
Right.
And I know that you will choose what's best for y'all.
Right.
But that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And so, Ladine, don't give me any shit about this, but I really don't have a word of the day.
Somebody don't got her words. Do y'all hear that? So I need to know if the listeners hear that Gina does not have her word of the day. Okay.
See how folks do?
And
open, transparent, and vulnerable.
All right. And hashtag pray for poo.
Hashtag pray for poo.
Yeah, I just forgot to say that. Hashtag pray for poo.
You just interrupted our
free
funny
poo.
moment.
I'm like, what in the world?
I'm sorry. I meant to say that.
We could pray for poo at the end.
No, I meant to say you got to pray for poo.
2 minutes. You
I'm
ain't
sorry.
had to do it right now.
It ain't like you had a word or something.
Oh,
that's how you gonna do?
that's how we're gonna do you, Gina. That was a nice jail.
I kid. I was trying to fill some think time for you to get a word.
Yeah,
So what's happening with the word, boo? What's going on?
Look, you lucky we ain't on Zoom because you would be muted like a motherfucker. Be quiet. Mute. It's just, the day started out, it was great. Took my mother to the doctor. Like, we had a good time. Like, it was all gravy. Great mood. We got new furniture delivered today. I've been excited about that since I ordered it 8 weeks ago, literally. And then
ordered from Santa's workshop.
What'd you say?
We ordered it from Santa's workshop or something. They had to build. Elves had to build it. Jeez.
Yo, it's crazy. And so apparently there is a huge shortage on furniture and large appliances. I think we talked about the appliances on another show.
Yeah.
And so when I went to get this furniture, like I knew because I had done some shopping online, just kind of looking around, and every place the delivery date was 6 to 8 weeks. And so when I went in to, actually make the purchase, the man was like, yeah, it's the whole industry. COVID, they've had to shut down warehouses, people are not coming to work, people are quitting, like production is just backlogged. And so it really was supposed to be delivered originally on September 19th. And then they were like, oh, we've got some of the pieces, but not all. So I'm like, so what do you have? And I'm like, well, we have this and this, and we don't have. So you have 2 out of my 5 pieces, and you're asking me if I want to confirm the delivery? Why the hell would I want y'all to come and drop off less than half of my shit? Like, seriously, how many times y'all gonna be coming in and out of my house? Like, no, wait for the rest of the shit to get there. And so here we are today. But real quick on that. So it was 2 delivery people. Dude really came in, and I don't know. Anyway, his mask was below his nose. So, I first saw it. I didn't say anything because they were still like in the process of coming in and out. So I was like, well, maybe, he forgot. He didn't realize, like, I don't know, I'm busy, whatever. So let me see what's going to happen. So he came in a second time. Now he's in my bedroom. And so I, casually walk in and I look at him and this mask is still below his nose. So I say to him, I go and get whatever I, picked up whatever. As I'm walking out, I look at him and I say, can you pull your mask up, please? This dude gave me the nastiest look. I was just like, are you serious right now? And I turned around and I just kept walking. I didn't respond because I'm like, really, this is not the day. Like, if you only knew how I felt right now, like, I can't talk to you. So he did, and, I left out the room. So probably halfway through, he says to me, I go back in the room, like, again, just checking up, one, to make sure he still got his damn mask in his nose, but also just to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? So he says, like, real, the tone was just real stink. Would it be too much of a problem if you could give us some water, a bottle of water? So, my thought is, what? But, I'm trying to do better and be better, y'all. So I just simply smiled, put on the biggest fake smile I had, and I was like, absolutely, I can get you some water. So I went and got the water, and, I noticed that when they left, how about they didn't drink the water, y'all? The 2 bottles of water is still sitting on my windowsill right now.
Go ahead.
I was like, oh, my water wasn't good enough for y'all. Okay, whatever.
They probably thought you put some Sugar Avery P in
it. Listen, y'all laughing, but there really is folks out there like that.
Right.
But I would never do anything like that. But, yeah, so what really was a turn for me as I was prepping for them to come, I lifted up the bed and, so I could vacuum up underneath before we put the new bed down, blah, blah, blah. And I came across some of my sister, some of her things. My sister passed away 6 years ago now. And it just it took me for a loop. Like my whole, like I was fucked up all the way until 5 minutes ago. So, it's a little, so I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm just kind of here tonight. So, y'all send me some positive energy and some peace and blessings, and we'll keep it moving.
Yes.
And so I will say, that while I guess I was so typically the pre-show and everything is like I don't know about a refresh, but it's definitely a rejuvenation for me. And, while I'm not all the way there, like typically, it did definitely lift my spirit some. So it's all good. Thank you guys for being there. And Ladine, you acting, losing your mind at the doctor's office. Like the universe knew that I was going to need each story today in order to make me feel better. Thank you.
Anything for you, boo. Anything for you, boo. I promise. Oh my God.
Oh, man. And that's what we all here for. Sometimes one of us may not be able to flip that switch. So feed off of us if you need to.
Mm-hmm. True indeed.
Yes, and so we joked about it a little bit, but it is so it's so real. Just when JR said to Ladine, choose energy, right? And so while sometimes it's incredibly hard and we can't always make it all the way, but just knowing that it really is a choice. A lot of people don't realize that. But it is a choice, and just knowing that we have the ability to choose that is powerful and speaks to, for me, just how awesome God is, right? Because we can just choose. So, speaking of choosing, Oh, look at that. I didn't even do that on purpose.
You did it, and that worked. That really
Right.
worked.
I was like, under my breath, I was like, look at this. That was impressive.
Not bad at all.
Right. Look at Segway Master.
So, y'all, tonight we are going to be talking about the names that we chose for our children, or choosing names when you have children. You know, how important is it to you? What were your thoughts? We've had lots of conversations about names in this household, and for us, it was it was really important. And so, okay, so each of us, the couples that are on here, we have 2 children each, and so I'm going to ask everybody to just take one of the children and tell us your child's name, and tell us why you named your baby what you did. Just what's the story behind your child's name? Ladine, why don't you go first? Yes. And which one of your beautiful babies are you going to talk about?
Oh, this is so funny right now. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm laughing because, man, I went through it finding this child's name, and this is why it does it to me every time I talk about this. So I'm going to choose Ladanian, of course. Oh, so my baby's name is Ladanian Macarius.
Lord.
Wait, stop.
Lord.
I don't think that I knew that.
Yes.
What is that middle name?
Macarius.
How do you spell that?
Makarius.
Wow, that's
so
very ethnic.
Yes, it's actually Greek. That spelling is a Greek. It's a Greek spelling. Macarius is a Greek spelling, and it means blessed in Greek.
Oh wait, so it's a Greek name, not just a Greek spelling.
Well, yeah. Well, it's a Greek spelling because in Spanish the spelling, the name is Macario, but it's spelled with an O. Macarius is spelled with an O, and it's pronounced Macario in Spanish.
Okay.
But I chose the Greek spelling because I had a girlfriend who was one of my best friends, and she was half Greek, half Italian, and her name was Calliope. And anyway, I fell in love with like the Greek culture for a really long time. So, and I wanted his name to mean something, right? After I picked Ladanian. So now my name is Ladine. So when I first heard and I never wanted to name my child anything, because people always mess up my name and they say Ladine. And I hate that because that's not my name. My name is Ladine, right? And it's spelled Ladine. So it's not Ladine, it's not Nadine. I have a cousin named Nadine, actually. And so my name is Ladine Monique. And so I wanted him to have my initials, apparently. And oh my God, I went through so many names with Ladanian. First, I wanted to name him after my grandfather. My grandfather's name is Perfecto, and that means perfect in English. So, of course, my whole family, they're like, oh my God, we're not on the island. You can't do that to this child. You can't name him Perfecto. The world
Thank God for your family.
They're going to call him Perfecto. We cannot do this. I'm like, oh, so then I fell in love with the name Elias. I love the name Elias. So I was going to name him Elias at one point. His name was going to be Elias. Well, because in Spanish it's Elias, but in English it's Elias. So I was going to name him Elias Misael. And I love that in Spanish. And then I had an uncle named Lino because I really wanted to go with an L, right? I wanted an L, so I wanted to go with an L. So I wanted to name him Lino. So I was like, oh, I love Lino Misael. People really can't mess up Lino too much. But then, of course, some of my family like, oh, your Theo Lino, he wasn't a good man. I'm like, what? How do you get to decide that? Like, he was my grandfather's brother. Like, you don't get to decide this. You had your own kids. It's not your choice. Oh, what family could do. Just people, I'm telling you, what family could do when they choose whatever names you want for your babies, all right? But try to think of them before you're pregnant. I say that because I think when you're pregnant and you're hormonal, you might just choose a name. The hormones might really make you choose something that just really doesn't work. So I don't know. Anyway, so we got to Ladanian. Ladanian's biological father actually gave me the name. And Ladanian was named after Ladanian Tomlinson, the football player. He thought he was an amazing whatever, he really loved him as a football player. And thank God that we named him, if we were going to name him after a football player, which I thought was a little, who does that? But people do it. At the same time, I was really grateful that at least he is the upstanding man that he is, and that he's a good guy, and at least he was named after, a real decent human being. So I was really appreciative of that. But I didn't like the spelling. So the spelling, the way Ladanian Tomlinson spells his name is LaDainian. And I thought that was too long for a kid. And all I could think about was him spelling his name in kindergarten and really messing it up. And then I didn't want I just didn't want the la. I told you I didn't want the la because people always messed up my name. And I didn't want to do the L-A and then the capital D. I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. So then, there was no capital D. And then I took the I out is what I did. So it's LADANIAN. But so I should have just named him Ladanian Michael. Ladanian, that's Ladanian, that's 4 syllables, right? And then Macarius is Macarius, that's 4 syllables too. So it's like, oh my God, what did I do to this kid? Right?
Lady,
What?
let me ask you a question. Why do you change your voice every time you say the name?
That's not funny. No, because it's really funny. So I'm just like, oh man, what did I do to him? But anyway, so I was going to name him. So I was thinking about Ladanian Michael. There were just several different M names that I always wanted to, not I always wanted to put, but I was looking to put in there. But I really I don't know. I'm telling you, I think I was hormonal. And then I'm like, okay, well, Ladanian, I don't have any connection to his first name. So maybe I can hold, some sort of connection to the second name. So I started looking at, I'm like, and then I started reading the Bible when I was pregnant of him. And I was like, well, how about we do something, that special. So it means blessed. Macarius meant blessed. And I was just like, okay, yeah, let's try that instead of Michael.
Where'd you get it from?
I was looking it up online on one of these websites. I was thinking, I'm telling you. And so he loves his name. And, now I've grown to love his name. And I do love it. But I just feel like it's a lot for him, even when he says it. Like, he's grown to love his name, too. Because in the beginning, I remember he was like, Mommy, that's it. It is a little long, I just love that he's got a good attitude about it. So anyway, that's how we got Ladanian Macarius. And he has my maiden name, which is Vasquez. So he's a Vasquez, which is beautiful. My father was very grateful that he was a Vasquez. So he had my maiden name because, of course, his father and I were not married when I gave birth. And Georgia is a very still old-fashioned state. So, I remember at that time in New York, if I wanted to name my son Sean Carter Jr., I think the laws have changed in New York since then. But, if I wanted to name my son Sean Carter Jr., I could have did that in New York. I could have gave him whatever last name I wanted to. But in Georgia, the father has until the child is 1 year old to claim paternity without having to pay for it. And then thereafter, they have, I think, up until they're 5 years old to claim paternity. And his biological father never did that. So anyway, right now he is a Vasquez. He will soon be a Glimph. And we have sat down with him and talked to him about it because now he's getting older. And, we want him to kind of be comfortable and to choose the name that he wants. And so he's actually chose to hyphenate his name, and he definitely wants to honor his father, but to him at this point, it's very special to him to be, to keep Vasquez too, because my father, he's one of 12 from his dad. And the men all had girls. So my dad had 4 girls. His brother Ephraim had 4 girls. And I don't remember the other brother, but he also had girls. So they've all had girls. So the name stopped. The name has stopped from my grandfather's line. So for Ladanian to be able to carry the name on, it's special to him. He understands that, because when my dad found out, my dad came with me, Ladanian. I had to get his birth certificate in order to travel with him. And so my dad just happened to be in Georgia, so he takes me to, the Department of Vital Records. I get the birth certificate, and he was like, "He's a Vasquez."
I never knew that.
Didn't know that. And it was so cute. It was so cute. He was honored. He was crying. It was beautiful. So I'm proud of my son for even choosing that as we begin to speak to him, about it. Grateful to my husband for taking him on like he's his own, and the whole Glimp family for doing the same for Ladanian. So the last name Glimp, it doesn't just mean a lot to him because of his dad. It really means a lot to him because of the family and the way everyone really loves them. And I'm getting all teary-eyed thinking about it, but it's beautiful.
Okay, cool. Because your time is up
can
anyway.
I just
So
say, Dane might just be getting the name Glimp, but he's been a Glimp for a minute.
Yeah, and he knows that. He really knows that. So that's beautiful. But anyway, so that's how Ladanian's name came up.
Okay.
And that's the story of Ladanian. Yeah.
So by default, JR, that leaves Lincoln.
Yeah. So Lincoln, first of all, I start with this. My father assumed that, whenever I had a son, that it would be the third. I'm a junior, so my father automatically assumed that this kid was going to be a third. Once he heard it was a boy, it was no question to him. He never asked what his name was going to be because he assumed. So, but I don't have any kind of connection with my birth name. Like, again, I've gone by JR my entire life. That includes my family, from teachers. Like, if I go back home now, my kindergarten teacher would call me JR. Nobody's ever called me Tommy. So the name just doesn't have a connection to me as far as like being my name. So again, like I told y'all, like, when I see people named Tommy, it doesn't register to me. They have the same name as me. But I see somebody named JR, and I'm like, hey, they got my name. What's up, JR? So, I didn't have this this need to have a junior because I am Tommy. So that's how it feels. So, and then I have I married a woman who made it.
Go ahead. Say what you got to say. Go ahead.
Okay. You say it as if I have trouble doing that or something.
I say the wrong person. Tell the wrong person that. No, go ahead.
No, you say that as if I have trouble saying what I want to say. No, I'm trying to find the right word. So I married a woman who has a deep connection with her name, and so when of course we met, Ladine was a little over a year old, and his initials were LM, and so my wife's initials were LM. And ironically, our mother's initials, her mother's an L, her mother's an M, my mother's an L, so LM there. So here she goes, it's got to be an LM. So
did make it a little bit about me, guys. A little bit about me. A little bit.
Yeah, I had no say in the matter unless he was going to be a junior. So given that he wasn't going to be a junior, I conceded that okay, let's make it an LM, but can I pick the names? So we came to that agreement, and because initially I was just going to pick a name. I was like, well, before the LM thing came along, I was like, okay, it's not going to be a junior. Al, you probably appreciate this, but the first name was going to be Cassius Clay.
Okay, all right.
But
as his first name?
No, I mean the first names that I chosen would be Cassius Clay Glimph. So Clay would be the middle name. So that didn't
Your dad
fly.
was like that. He
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
all right, well, he ain't Tommy, but I'll take
Right.
Cassius.
Exactly. That was my
Take
thought.
Cassius.
That okay, if it ain't his name, I'm sure he'd appreciate that. But that's when the LM situation came along, and I was like, oh, okay, you're gonna make this difficult on me, huh? So I didn't want it to be, sorry, Pooh, but I didn't want to name him Lee, and I didn't want a La crazy, Latravius. I ain't want no shit like that either. So so I didn't I just started thinking of L names of people that I'm familiar with, and I didn't name him after a football player. It's just, Lincoln Kennedy is a football player who I know and I like the name. So I was like, all right, how about Lincoln? And I was trying to find an M, and I've always been a Miles Davis fan. So, with Lincoln Miles, and she liked it. So I nailed it on the first try, and we went with that.
And it didn't have so many syllables.
Right. It did not.
And I was like, yes, it's so, just perfect. My poor baby. I don't know what I did.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And that was part of it. I was like, I'm not going to name this kid something that, his resume is going to get tossed out as soon as it gets in the building. So I was like, Ladanian's always, we're going to have one kid with that trouble already. I'm not making it.
Oh, and it's getting ready to increase. Because y'all talk about hyphenating this name.
Right.
So, the shit was already long.
Right.
And that's what I said. I'm like, Bobby, can you just pick one? Can you just pick one of the names? Just pick one, baby. He's like, no, I want to
He's
pick
like,
one.
nah.
I'm
I
like,
got
oh
choices.
my God.
I'm choosing both.
Right.
That's exactly what he said, too. So
Yeah.
what
Like
do you
he already started, his email is hyphenated already. Like he's.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
At least Glimph is just one syllable.
Right. And Glimph is kind of questioning. I walk into a lot of interviews and people are like, "Oh, you a black dude." Right. They're like, "Tommy Glimph, we really don't know." If I was Tyrone Williams, they kind of know. But so Glimph is kind of a questionable name.
So I'm going back to Ladine and I know, right? So will it be Vasquez Glimph or Glimph Vasquez?
Vasquez Glimph.
Did we lose them?
Vasquez Glimph.
Wow.
Damn, we lost them.
All right.
I know we already didn't talk. I mean, we already finished talking about Ladania, but I'm gonna go back. So when he changes his name, will it be Vasquez Glimph or Glimph Vasquez?
That's what's Glimph.
Okay.
Yeah, and you got to see him. It's so funny. He puts his initials like LMVG all over the place. And I'm just
Yeah.
so he would try to write the whole name out. So he's been writing Vasquez Glimph even before we asked him, even before he was old enough, and he would just write Vasquez Glimph. I mean, since he was in kindergarten, and it was just so you would look at these papers, and it's because he would write Ladanian Macarius, and I'd be like, Bobby, you don't got to put your middle name on the paper, This is way too long, and so I'm like, and every time I would see another paper, I would just look at myself and I would just, not shake my head, what did I do to my baby? What's happening? But yeah.
Well, I'm glad he likes it because potentially you really could have fucked him up with that. There's a lot going on.
Right.
So I'm glad he likes it.
I'm glad he loves it too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Lincoln, he just got lucky by the nature of who his dad is, so he's good. 4 syllables for the whole name.
Yes.
Right.
First, middle, and last.
Right. I was like, Let's keep this simple, buddy.
That's funny. All right, Al, which one you gonna take?
I will take Adea.
Hmm.
I'll leave Alvin to you. So her name is Adea Marie Gloria Glimp, nickname Big Deal. So Big Deal comes from as an real small kid, infant. She was one of those kids who like made a fuss often. It was very passionate, but it was over something. It wasn't like just she was just wigging out just cause. And she made a big deal out of shit, and it was just like, so that was like the nickname I gave her, just because, like, real talk. But it's as she's grown up and she's embraced it, and that's because that's really not so much her personality anymore. But so it's kind of like she's the big deal, or she is a big deal, and kind of where the name sits now. But the real origin of it is she would be pounding in her baby chair because she wanted some chicken or some shit like that.
And it probably really was chicken.
Right. I want some chicken. So then Marie and Gloria, her middle names.
You didn't do Adea, man.
I think that's
I'm sorry.
That's the one that really got a story to it. So
Gotcha.
Are her grandmother's names. So Marie is Gina's mother and Gloria is my mother. Adea is where it gets real interesting.
Wait, can I jump in?
Sure.
So originally, Adea only had one middle name. When we chose the name, it was Adea Marie. And then Al's mom passed away, and so we added his mom's name in her honor. Which,
if those who know the history of Adea being born and my mother passing away, considering my mother passed away 10 months before Adea was born, that is saying that we really had this name before Adea was even thought of, which is part of the story, is because the name Adea was the girl name we picked if we had a girl when Alvin was born. And so as we were going into our first child, we did not know what she was having, so we came up with two names. And so Adea was the female name, Adea Marie. So where does Adea come from? So in me and my siblings, all of our names and all of our children's names, their first names and our first names, all start with an A or a D. Which is, I think initially it just kind of happened, but I definitely know it was intentional by the time I'm having babies. So I can't say for certain Dawn paid attention to it. Don't know for certain if Felicia was paying attention to it. But I know by the time I'm picking names, it's like, oh shit, I'm not fucking this up. So I'm sticking with an A or a D. Now,
I think by the time Alasia was born, I think it was A's too. Mm-hmm.
So we got Adea.
Not we.
I got the name Adea for the summer before Alvin born. I went up to Colgate, where we both went to school, to talk and speak to the incoming freshmen. Like, they were going through this summer program that Gina and I both had went through before, like the summer program before freshman year starts. So me being a fairly new alumni at the time, I was asked to come up there to just tell them who I am, what I do, and basically y'all gonna be all right going through all the bullshit that Colgate can put you through sometimes as black folk. While I was there, I happened to meet I think she was an RA named Adea. And we were, at the time, I'm not sure if we were thinking about names, but it definitely was like a name that I just heard like, yeah, that's a fucking beautiful name. Like, damn, like, how do you spell it? Where does it mean? Like, so she spelled it differently than how we ultimately spell Adea's name. But when she tells me that it's a Hebrew name and it means loved by God, is what she told me at the time. But when we actually looked it up, like Adea, it's adorned by God. And so, of course, I never can remember what that word adorn means. I actually had to look it up just now to even remind myself what it means. So it really means adorn is to make more beautiful. But it's not just make more beautiful, according to what I just saw on Google. It's to make something that is beautiful in itself more beautiful. So the whole idea that God is making something that is more beautiful, like, it just makes the whole name just kind of dope. And so, you know, I came back to my wife and was like, yo, I got the dope name for a girl, starts with an A, and it's Adea. And I think I might have spelled it out for her. I think she spelled it Adaiah. And, you know, my wife was like, yeah, all right, kill the spelling. But she kind of, I don't remember if you loved it initially or if you had to grow on it. I can't remember. But.
Well, you know, I love the name in and of itself initially, like as it stands on its own. What I wasn't crazy about, because this whole story that he just told is really code for I fucked a girl named Adea. So I wasn't really liking that part.
Right now, wait, what?
So
Gina, where did that even come from?
Because that's what it was 24 years ago, and it's still is that.
Oh my god!
Did we just have a trust episode? I thought so.
Yeah, we did, right? But,
and I was pregnant when you went. That's why you came back with the name. Really, I was pregnant at the time you traveled.
I don't think the math adds up, but either way, the fact is I didn't sleep with this woman, and it still is to me just an amazingly dope name. And so when Alvin is born, we don't get to use it on him, and then she gets pregnant a year later and has Adea, and 2 years later, and we're able to bless her with the name Adea Marie Gloria Klemp.
Nice.
And what's so real interesting about that woman Adea is that I meet her, love the name, and I even think I told her then, like, I'm gonna name my girl after you, right?
That was pillow talk.
Jesus Christ.
I don't run into her, see her, bump into her again until I think it was the 2016 class reunion, Colgate reunion, where I go back up there and I'm just walking around introducing myself. And on this woman's name badge is Adea. And I'm like, oh shit, you're the one. I've been telling this story about you for like 20 years. And Like, so she's freaking out because she's like doesn't remember me, but it's just the coolest story that somebody has named their daughter after her. But anyway, that's the Adea story. But naming, to Gina's point, naming was something, and like what we named our children was something that we were very intentional, thoughtful, collaborative on. And it took more with the boy names, a lot of what I don't want to say negotiating, but conversations to land on names. So that's my story.
And you sticking to it?
It's kind of easy when it's the truth.
Beautiful story, except for the speed bumps.
The bumps that Gina put in.
Right.
I'm like, what happened here?
The bumps in the road just make you strong. Yeah, so it was very important to us, to the point where I remember little Alvin was probably, I don't know, 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade, and he had to do an assignment about his name. And basically it was, tell the story of your name. And Alvin was like, I don't know, he was, it just was not significant to him. He was just like, just some little 2 sentences on the paper, like there wasn't any story behind his name, like there wasn't. It was just like, dude,
I was about
how
to say,
many
I know you was looking.
to come up with no fucking name? You gotta be kidding me.
And you just gonna write 2 sentences?
So we get, yeah.
I'm like, stop playing. Stop playing. So after we got over all that superficial, look how long we took, blah, blah, blah. Yo, this is your name. Like, this is very important. You know what I'm saying? And you need to understand, like, your name and why it is and what it means and, like, all of that, because we put a lot into it because it's just that important. Same with Adea. Because her name is unusual, people mispronounce it all the time. And even though it is spelled phonetically correct, people mess it up. And Adea was probably 12-ish, and I took her to the doctor, and the people called her name, and they called her, it was probably Adaya. That's the most common mispronunciation. And she was just like, yes, and went on. I'm like, but that's not your name. Like, why are you answering when that's not your name? There's no correction. There's no. And she was just like, and it was the whole body language that just said to me, like, this just was not a thing for her. And she was just like, because it's not a big deal. People say my name wrong all the time. I know that they're talking to me. Yes, baby. Yes, you do know. However, make people call you by your name.
I'm very big on that. I'm so glad you teach her that. That's beautiful.
That is important.
It's important.
That is very important. And
I
for
do that
me,
today with Ladine at the doctor.
It's a sign. It's a sign of respect.
Right.
But that's your name, and that's the only thing that you should be called, and it's not okay. And of course, people are going to mess it up. But
Right.
It's your job to
It's okay
correct
to
them and
correct
help them.
people. Right.
What your name is. So Al already told you all of the children's name is A and D, and so we spent a lot of time thinking of an A name. Initially, Al did not want his son named after him. Like, it wasn't a thing for him. He didn't matter. Like, he wanted, I think his first choice was Asa. Was it Asa, Al? Was that the first one? Ali was the first one.
There we go.
Then came Asa. We was thinking of all these A names. I didn't like any of them, right? In my ignorance, I didn't understand that Asa was, because only Asa I had ever heard or knew was the big white guy on One Life to Live.
I loved Asa. I was
from Texas, right?
I remember that name, and I love that name. Oh my God.
I didn't mind the name. It was the association. And I'm like, that's some white country name. We can't name our baby after this white country, blah, 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 blah. And I don't even know if he told me he was African at the time. He probably did because I know that he knew it then. But I still was like, but people are going to be thinking of Asa from One Life to Live, and that can't be my baby. So we knew that the first name had to be an A. We also, Alvin, Big Al, does not have a middle name, right? And so there was no option of using his middle name. And what Al wanted instead of a junior, he really wanted, this was your first choice. I forgot about this. His first choice was really AB after his dad. That was his dad's nickname.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh like that. I'm laughing because of what we were talking about.
So he wanted to name him AB, and I just couldn't. I couldn't. That just was not. I'm like, that's not even a name. Those are initials. We are not getting ready to name my baby AB. So the compromise for that was that his initials, his first name would start with an A, his middle name would start with a B, and Al would call him AB. So till this day, all of Al's family calls my son AB. All of my family and his friends call him Alvin. So we went through the same thing, a list of B names, but it didn't seem like the list was that long because it doesn't seem like a lot of nice boy names to start with a B. And we wanted it to be meaningful and a namesake, right? So there are not too many family members whose names start with B. He does have an uncle. Well, we do have an Uncle Billy. And so he wanted to name my baby Billy. I had the same issue. Black folks
now
really
why did you have the same issue, Gina?
So black folks ain't really named Billy. How many dudes you know named Billy? Right? Problem number one. Problem number two is the man's name is not even Billy.
It makes for one hell of a story, doesn't it?
Right.
His name ain't even William. Like we have no idea where this Billy came from. The man's name is James, and so
he don't even know why they call him Billy.
I need you to say it one more time, Gina. What is Uncle Billy's real name, Gina?
James.
That's where JJ comes from.
I know.
Right.
And that's
I just needed Gina to say it one more time.
Right, like what the fuck? We don't even know where Billy came from. That ain't his name. He don't know how he got it. It's a white boy name. Like everything is so wrong with Billy. Billy is not gonna happen.
So at the end of the day, for all my husbands who listening, choose what hill you want to die on. All right. So when you have a wife that is pregnant, the battles that you want to fight in terms of like, is this that battle that you want to die on? This one right here, the name Billy, the name Ali, the name Asa. For me, I chose this is not the hill I want to die on, and said let's come up with another name.
Right. So Al has on his mother's side of the family has an uncle, a grandfather named Well, here's the thing. He has a great-grandfather named Benjamin. He also has an uncle named Benjamin, but he was dirty. So Al was very clear. We're not naming him after my uncle Benjamin. We're naming him after my great-grandfather Benjamin. So his name, my son's name, is Alvin Benjamin, and he goes by AB or Alvin. And it's funny. So as he was growing up, because we had two Alvins in the house, the distinction for me was my husband was Al and my son was Alvin. And so most people who, are close enough to us, they know that. And when I would say, I'll take that back, except for Al's family, because they weren't used to the Alvin at all. And so they like, you talking about AB? You mean AB?
Right.
Yeah, AB.
That's his name.
That's his name.
That's what I'm talking about. I forgot where I was. I mean, AB, yeah. So, but as he's gotten older, his friends call him Al, because he's, a real dude now. So it gets a little hanky. I can't just say Al because my son answers now too to Al. But yes,
Wow.
that's the names. And you know what? It's so interesting how like we all clearly think that naming is important. Oh, I forgot to mention. And so while Alvin's name is not a name that we don't think that even ordinary sounding names have meanings as well, but Alvin means noble.
Oh,
And
I
so
love that.
and so it was just a win-win because I would, we were able to say to him, your name is significant because you're named after your dad and that means something. And so, act accordingly. But also your name means noble. And so you need to live up to your name and its meaning. So, it was cool. And both of them, I think both of them, I know Adele loves her name. She
I
just thinks
love Adea's name. I remember
she
the first time I heard it. I'm
Yes.
sorry, go ahead.
She just thinks it's beautiful. Adele loves
It
everything
is.
about herself anyway, so that's all good. And
That's so beautiful, though, that she even appreciates it and she loves it. Being a woman and being able to like really hone in on that and love it and appreciate like her entire being. That's very important. So I just love everything about her and her entire being and her whole entire life. But anyway,
oh yes, she's just awesome.
she
Uh,
is.
She's a big
She
deal.
is. She's a big deal.
She's a big deal. So as everybody talked, right? For all of us, I haven't spoken about it yet, but for each of us, there was, a familial aspect to naming some, at least a couple of the children. So that was important. But also, just this idea of the amount of time, whether now you regret it a little bit, maybe, I don't know, Ladine, but the idea that it was so important that we put so much time and energy into what we named our children. And I am particularly, I don't know, sensitive, definitely, but I just pay attention to names because my name is just, it's a very interesting name. And there's a lot of history that goes with that in terms of what I had to go through growing up, how I was treated about my name and teased and how it was said and all the mispronunciations and all of that stuff, like really can have a negative impact, right, on children or adults even, depending on the situation. And so I just wanted to make sure that my children didn't go through that. You know what I mean? And while they mispronounce Adea's name often, it doesn't have the ability to be mispronounced in a way that could be shameful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and so I just didn't want that impact. Now, Alvin gets teased. He used to get teased. And even now and then, somebody will say, a chipmunk reference,
So I came from a real different. That's why I was willing to name him AB. I was willing to name him Billy because I came from a vantage point. When you're an Alvin Glimp, I've been teased. I done been through all of that shit. And at the end of the day, like I can remember, I'll never forget, like when the lessons that my elders were telling me about my last name actually made sense to me. And what I mean by that, like I can remember as a kid, my father, my uncles talking to me and my brothers about, look, your last name is Glimp. People gonna fuck it up. People gonna misspell it. People gonna say it wrong. But you need to understand it as a badge of honor. Like you are us, and people will never forget your name. So, like, act accordingly when you out there. Like, understand that, like, it ain't gonna be no thing like you're gonna be a Smith and people gonna forget you. No, everybody will ever remember a Glimpse. So you need to do your best. So it was like they flipped it, and real talk, you would have thought we were the Kennedys or we were the Jacksons, the way they spoke about the name Glimp. And I think when that started to hit me in terms of my name, Glimp, and like it really ain't nothing you can say bad about my name because I already know my name is a shit. That's how I started understanding Alvin and people calling me Chipmunk and shit. Like, really? It ain't that even that big of a deal because, really, I kind of like my name. So I'll enjoy it when you fuck with me because either way, it don't matter. So even as an adult, people every now and then try to fuck with me and be like, Alvin. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. It ain't no problem. Like, you know how many times that happened to me in elementary school? I done been got over that shit. I don't mind you doing that to me. So at the end of the day, like, I definitely came into in terms of naming, like, we can name our kids as long as it's important to us. I'll help them understand why it should be important to them.
Yes.
Fuck who doesn't get it.
That's right.
Yeah, little Alvin never he never tripped about it, and maybe it was because of those conversations that you shared with him, Al. I don't know, but he never seemed to be like really impacted by the chipmunk references. But I also forgot to mention, I never did say how we landed on Alvin. So we went through all this exhaustive list about all these aid names, and Al started talking about naming him Alvin. Initially, I was like, hell no, because I don't like the name. It's just like, I don't like that name, so I really don't want to. And then, it kind of, and now I understood just recently that my memory of the story wasn't necessarily how, at least my perception wasn't what he was perceiving. So I thought that it was very important for us to name our son after him. And so in my mind, I finally just acquiesced to the idea. And, I asked myself, like, which is more important? Is it more important to him to have his son named after him? Or is it more important that you don't particularly care for the name? And I decided the former. And so that's how he got his first name.
I think it's very important what you were saying, like about Adea and how people pronounce their name. I teach my kids that because I would have teachers like cross the L out and put an N there instead, and or they call me Ladine. Like, and I hate still to this day grown adults. They'll say, "Oh, what's your name?" Ladine. Oh, well, hey, Ladine. I did not just say my name was Ladine. Especially here in the South, it drives me crazy. Like, I didn't say Ladine. I clearly said Ladine, and my name is Ladine. It's not Ladine. And so with Ladanian, people really mess his up, and they call him Ladamian all the time. And it drives me insane, and it drives him crazy. And so he had a couple of teachers that and throughout the year, and I would meet, when they would meet me, and they'd be like, "So Ladamian," and I'm looking at them like, his name is not Ladamian. His name is Ladanian, and it's clear on paper that there's an N there, not an M there. I didn't mess up. I don't, I'm not one of those parents that think that, the M is pronounced like an N or the N's pronounced like an M. We didn't do that. There's no, invisible letters there, assuming that it's going to be pronounced this way, that the enunciation's like this. No, that's not what it is. It's clearly Ladanian. Can you please call him by his name? So,
a few family members still call him Ladamian.
Oh my God! Really? On S. Oh my God! On Essie.
Yeah.
Oh my God! She
Bailey
flipped out within the last.
Bailey.
Yeah. The last time I saw it, within the last year, when we saw Aunt Essie, it was so funny. She called him Ladamian, and I turned around and I said, "That's the first time I heard it." So I said, Aunt Essie, that is not his name. What you talking about? She got so mad that I said something or even corrected her, okay? And she was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "I've been calling him Ladamian his whole life." I said, "Well, I ain't never heard it, because if I would have heard it, I'd have checked you the first time." And she was like, "I just can't believe that you never even said." So she was offended, one, that I never told her, two, then that I even said something. Oh, it was hilarious. And I'm like, no, his name is not, it's not Ladamian. It's
Yeah, she
Ladamian.
threw a whole fit the rest of the day.
She threw a whole fit.
A
The
power.
rest
you
of the
serious?
day, and the next 3 or 4 times we saw her after that. It was very funny. But anyway.
I was gonna say we definitely come from a family where our elders will fuck up a name.
All right.
And,
Yeah.
And don't care.
Alicia, my sister, was called Aisha by one of my uncles all of her life.
Yeah.
All of her
Oh,
life.
no.
Like Aisha, and it just was just listen. And then called he has a niece on his wife's side who's named Aisha, and he called her Alicia. And so that's just how he got down. And, it's just how we do. But just for a point of clarity, I'm going to pull a poo and do a 2-minute later point of clarity. I'm pooing right now. I did not want to name my son after me. And he got Alvin just because it was a name that was suggested by my mother as we were going back and forth, and we're like probably into the 3rd trimester and don't have a name yet. And she's like, well, why don't y'all just, and I'm throwing all these names. I like this, Gina likes this, and we can't come up with a name. Well, why don't you just use Alvin, stupid? Was kind of like what she said to me. And I'm like, oh. Why don't you use Alvin? It's not like you don't like it. I'm like, but I really want to name him after my father. Like, well, you still are accomplishing that by using the name Alvin. And then I came to my wife and said, hey, what about Alvin? So when I even think about, even though he has my name, usually when I'm telling the story, I don't even tell it like, oh, I named him after me. He's named after my father, and he's named after my great-grandfather, A.B. and Benjamin, and he just happens to have my name is kind of how I tell it.
Except your father's name wasn't Alvin.
But he was
But
A.B.
I call him A.B., and despite your family's refusal to call him A.B., which is something that honestly, early on in my life, in his life, I did have feelings about that. Like, but I got over it because my wife helped me get over it, and she just said, look, I don't call him A.B. Why should they call him A.B.? But initially, it was a little thing like, yo, yeah, I know how much I want this boy to be named after my father. Why aren't y'all doing what my family's doing and calling A.B.? Because we ain't. But I got over it 20 years later.
It took you 20 years?
No, 20 years later, I can look back and say I got over it.
Oh.
No,
I was like,
it probably took 12 years.
That's a long time, too. Growing up, my grandmother wanted my mother to name me after her. Her name was Evelyn. And my mother refused. Thank God, for several reasons. But my grandmother, until the day she died, never called me by my first name. She always called me by my middle name because she was upset that my mother didn't name her. Name me her first name. I'm sorry. Ridiculous, right?
Wow.
Ridiculous. It really fits. It fits her personality.
Wow.
And so I, as a child, I couldn't name it. I couldn't name what I was feeling. Every time she called my name. As an adult, I understand that it was disrespect.
Wow.
Like, I just felt like, why are you not calling me by my name? You know what I'm saying? But back then, it was out of the question to question an adult.
Right.
I could never say, how I felt, but it was just like, that's fucked up. My name, that's not my name. But she never, not once, one day of my life, did she called me by my first name.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my dad, he like I said, he wanted Lincoln to be a third so bad. This is the power of like the Glimp last name, just how much power we give it, is that because of course me and Ladine weren't married when Lincoln was born. We weren't married yet. He thought he was going to have Ladine's last name. So once he found out he was a Glimp, he was cool with him not being Tommy. Right. Oh, he a Glimp? Yeah, he a Glimp. Oh, shit. All right. So
I'm
he had
good
no
now.
problem.
That's
Right.
the important part.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so
Yeah, he
ridiculous.
ain't got Tommy and he ain't Glim. What the hell going on?
Right.
Man, no, but seriously though, when Lincoln was born and he was a baby, he looked just like Pop. And so I was like, I was upset. I was like, why'd I have to be hormonal? Like, this is so beautiful. And that's what I mean. So like for you listeners out there that haven't named your children yet, yeah, they're your children, but they have their own identity and they're pieces of you and your spouse. And so it's like, I was thinking, after I had him and I would see the way my father-in-law bonded with my son, and I was like, I felt like it was so selfish of me to not give him his grandfather's name, and how much more it would have meant to him to have his grandmother, his grandfather's name, and just how much more it would have meant to my son to have his grandfather's name, and just how dope that would have been for him. And so again, when we're hormonal or when we're selfish and we want to make it about us, because they're our kids, and you have this thing where, until they become their own people, and you're like, yeah, I mean, I don't, what was I thinking? But I'm definitely, I loved it. He loves Lincoln. Everybody loves Lincoln's name. Even Ladanian. Like, I could not imagine naming him something else. So even though all of that happened, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, what'd I do? But at the same time, like, I couldn't see him being anything else. He's like perfectly Ladanian. So, but just, yeah, that's one thing I would definitely say. I would always try to come up with names before you get hormonal or before you have children, even though you never know who you're going to have children with. And that person can definitely change your mind as far as what the name might be. But yeah, I would at least have some kind of ideas, because if you leave it up to hormones or being selfish and not making it about you, so for me, like I love what you guys did with all of the kids in the family, and the whole A and D thing. And I think that stuff like that is really dope. And that's something to be treasured with children and their families. You know what I mean? So it's like, you kind of make it about you, but not really, because in that way you make it about them. So I think it's dope to really make it about them.
And we are having the first, what is this? This would be your dad's great grandchild. So the first one is on the way. And so I'm talking about Darius is having a baby.
That's what I was about to say. Who
What's happening?
okay.
Oh,
You didn't know the news.
We breaking news on
Wow.
my shut.
I know it's a secret.
Breaking news
I mean,
music.
it ain't a secret. It just ain't my business. But I guess if it ain't one person's business, it's anybody's business.
Oh, shit, he grown. Congrats.
He grown.
So he's having a baby,
Okay.
and it's going to be a girl. She is going to be a girl, and he's naming her, or they are naming her Autumn. So that generation has also committed to the A's and D's. So
Wow.
right
That
now
is dope.
we have another. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
When the other party gets involved.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, the whole
right.
name thing is extremely important,
Right.
and Ladine, thanks for that advice. But I think the other thing too is that just kind of remember that the story behind the name is important.
Right. And I did get my JR out of this whole thing.
He did.
Yeah. So when Deja was looking for names for the baby,
That's why Drew is spelled with J?
Yeah, that's why I spelled JRUE. So I threw Drew out there because I was like, man, if we ever have a miracle baby and it's boy or girl, I'm naming the baby Drew, and it's gonna be JRUE. And
Well, no, JR wanted to name the baby JRU. And he said whether it was a boy or a girl, he said if we had another baby, that's it. It was going to be JRU. And so even down to that, like him not identifying with his first name, like his own mama calls him J. She don't even call him JR all the time. She call him J. So so the whole JR thing, so him wanting Drew, I was like, oh, yeah, I could do that for a boy or a girl, but that's not happening. So my niece was looking for names our niece was looking for names, and JR told her Drew, and she was like, because she was looking for J names. And I was like, well, I mean, you could use Drew if you want. And so, she had to go through her passing it through, and then they decided to add the E. And I was like, blah. But whatever. I thought the JRU was doper, but whatever.
Either way, it's extremely unique, and that's an awesome story. I was named after my uncle, and so JR, you've got an added responsibility. You got to help him be proud to live up to his name.
Right, and it makes sense because everybody, when I would have pictures of since Deja was a baby, I'd have pictures of her at my desk, and people thought she was my child. Everybody else said she looked like me. So
till this day,
right? Yeah, to this day.
I always said. Yeah, I always said that if I had a little girl, I would love for her to come out looking just like Deja. To me, Deja looks like she's JR's daughter. And every time someone new in my family comes in and they meet her, they're like, oh my God. She looks just like him. But then, some people in the family, of course, are like, no, she doesn't. No, whatever. Yes, she does. But anywho.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be one of those people. I don't see it.
Yeah. So, but and I would hear it more when she was a child. I still hear it now. But when she was little, I would always get, that's got to be your daughter. But I was like, no, I ain't got no kids. That's my niece. So, and so it makes sense, and it's right that Drew would get, the name that I picked as my, pass on.
Right.
So yeah.
Especially since your wife not giving you any more babies.
Yeah, that shop is closed, so had to pass
shop
that name
closed,
down.
Closed.
And it's funny also that two things. One, I know y'all mentioned nicknames. Did AB ever get did y'all ever think of did he ever earn a nickname other than AB that y'all assigned him? Did he ever earn anything like a nickname based off an incident or anything?
Nope. When he was young, I used to call him Benjamin.
Okay.
It was never outside of his name. And then we had a stint where I would call him Buddy sometimes, but there was no story attached. Because Alvin was there was no story attached.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. What about y'all?
Lincoln, I call him Macho. Just as we was a baby, he was always flexing. Just making making muscles.
Right,
so I call him Macho all the time. Ladine calls him all kind of stuff. Don't have to really sticks, Conlon, and Stink. So
he was just thinking Lincoln from the day he came. The day he was born. He was burning my nose hairs from the time from the first diaper change. I was like, come on, son. JR, when he was in my belly, he used to call him Plankton. Plankton from SpongeBob. That was really funny.
Yeah, he looked like a plankton.
He looked like a plankton.
And Danian, of course, Dane, Philadelphian, but I call him Goat Cheese or Cheese, because when I first met Ladine, she told me your son's name, and I was like, oh shit, Ladanian? I was like, he the goat, and so I was like, oh shit, he the goat, meaning not necessarily that was my thoughts that he was the goat, but he's the best running back at that time. So I called him the GOAT. And when I met him, I started calling him Goat Cheese. And then
where did cheese come from?
Just goat cheese, just a play off goat, goat cheese. It just evolved.
That nigga just had a cheesy face,
right? He had a cheesy face, right? He had this cheesy face, right?
Big cheesy face. It's serious.
So then I started calling him Cheesy Face, and now it's just Cheese. So that's my nickname for him. Is what's up, Cheese? But he's still got that same cheesy face.
And he's got Bopple after my dad. My dad is Bopple.
Yeah. He's got what?
Bopple. P-A-P-O. Bopple after my dad.
So yeah. Gotcha. And then lastly, before you wrap it up, Gina, did y'all know that it is International Podcast Day?
No!
No, we didn't. How you wait to the end of the show to talk about that?
Well,
I don't understand what's happening right now.
Well,
what is happening?
Well, I didn't want to make like take over the topic, but because I tagged y'all on a post on Facebook anyway. All the members of the Facebook, the Defy Life family, tagged in the post. But yeah, so today is International Podcast Day, so I want to thank y'all for everything you do. Al, you being there from literally day one with this thing, and for Ladine, for all your support from day one. Gina, you as well. I always say that for the crazy hours and long nights when you just hear me and Al and Pooh talking about shit, y'all probably wonder what the hell is going on. And now right, exactly. But now that you're a part of it and you see the attraction and the addiction to podcasting, hopefully you understand. And thank you all for coming on board. And everybody across the network, thank you so much for all you do. This is, it's definitely a labor of love. So thank you, everybody in the Defy Life family. Happy International Podcast Day.
Happy International Podcast Day.
I'm so aggravated with you. Like, that's such a big deal, and we didn't even talk about this today. See, this is why we have One Eye Shut, because this is the married stuff, right? Like, how you not gonna tell me that all day? You waited until now to tell me that.
What you saying, Ladine? That's typical forgetful husband shit.
Yeah, like, come on, son. You gotta do better.
Well,
Son.
Come on, son.
In all honesty, I get what you're saying, and so I apologize. However, when you've been podcasting since before podcasts were even called podcasts, it don't really register to me that it's a podcasting day until it's kind of like having a uncle that you met when you were 30, and then it's his birthday, and you're like, oh yeah, it is your birthday. So it totally skips my mind most years. Y'all, really, I'm lucky I remembered to even post about it.
All right, we'll give you a pass this time. Right. Next year we expect different, JR.
All right, I'll throw y'all a virtual party.
Right, something that would have been cool. You see, like, ay, Dios mío.
Are you serious? No, please don't count on that. I'm joking. If y'all knew how one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life is get 12 podcasters together at one time. That's impossible to do. It's damn near impossible to get 4 for a trivia show. So, nah.
It's all right. We understand. We will give you.
So
we'll give you a pass.
Yeah, blame my head, not my heart. Happy International Podcast Day.
Happy International Podcast Day. Y'all, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening. Please be mindful of what you name your children. Their story is important. Past, present, and future.
3 syllables or less.
3 syllables. Word. Have a good night, y'all.
Good night.
Same channel.
Peace.
We're told that greatness is exceptional, when it should be expected. You choose every day to live your life intentionally, without apology for how bright your light may shine. So go be great. Go be brilliant. Go be you. Go defy life. The Defy Life movement is one that speaks to each of us in its own way. Defy Life Gear speaks to us all by reminding us that one size does not fit all. Visit defylifegear.com to get fitted for greatness.